Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the original Shadow Monarch who ascended into a god class being Naruto x Hae-In, solo leveling. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Shadow Among Us. The gate pulsed, an angry, violent crimson that screamed wrongness into the soul skyline. Ju-Hee froze mid-stride, coffee splashing over her fingers as the rumble shook the sidewalk. Around her, pedestrians stopped, faces upturned toward the tear, in reality hovering between skyscrapers. S-rank, someone whispered. Definitely S-rank. The air pressure dropped. Her ears popped. Then came the screams as the first monsters poured through. Run! A hunter in tactical gear sprinted past, shoving civilians toward evacuation routes. S-rank breach. Everyone move. Ju-Hee's legs wouldn't listen. Around her, people fled, but she stood transfixed as winged creatures, like pterodactyls crossed with something worse, dove from the gate. One spotted her, wings tucking as it plummeted. A shadow flickered across her vision. One moment the creature was diving, the next, it simply wasn't. In its place, black particles scattered like ash in the wind. A man stood before her, his back to her. Blonde hair caught the sunlight. A black coat reached his calves, moving slightly in a breeze she couldn't feel. "You should go," he said without turning. More creatures emerged from the gate. The man raised his hand, and darkness pooled from his fingertips. The shadows stretched, hardened, formed jagged spears that shot upward, impaling three monsters simultaneously. Ju-Hee finally found her legs and ran. Hae-In arrived 15 minutes after the emergency alert. Too late for the initial breach, but the gate was still active, pulsing with malevolent energy. Hunter Association barriers contained the immediate area, evacuation teams herding civilians to safety. "Status report," she demanded, striding toward the command post. Kim Min-ho, tactical coordinator, glanced up from his screens. S-rank gate, possibly S+ given the energy readings. Appeared without warning, no preliminary signatures. Casualties? That's the weird part. Min-ho swiped through surveillance footage. Minimal. Someone intervened before our rapid response teams arrived. Hae-In narrowed her eyes at the grainy images. A figure moving faster than the cameras could properly track. Darkness that didn't behave like shadow magic she'd seen before. Unknown hunter. If he's a hunter, he's not registered with any association worldwide. Min-ho pulled up another screen. Power signature doesn't match known classifications. Look at this energy graph. The readout showed massive spikes unlike anything in their database. Hae-In frowned. "I'll investigate personally. Direct support teams to the South Quadrant. Keep civilians clear." She checked her sword, the familiar weight reassuring against her palm. Most hunters needed teams for S-rank gates. Hae-In preferred working alone. Other hunters' magical auras made her nauseous, a sensitivity that had pushed her to perfect her solo capabilities. She moved toward the gate, each step measured. The miasma of monster stench grew stronger, but something else caught her senses, a clean, sharp scent like winter air after lightning. Powerful, but not repulsive. Strange. A screech from above. Three bat-like creatures diving, claws extended. Hae-In's blade flashed, severing wings from bodies in a smooth arc. The monsters dissolved into mana particles. More creatures circled beyond her position. She tensed, calculating trajectories. Black tendrils erupted from the ground 20 meters ahead, impaling monsters mid-flight. The shadows retracted, dragging their prey into darkness that pooled like liquid night. And there he was. Blonde hair. Blue eyes that seemed to glow. Whisker-like marks on his cheeks. He wore simple clothes, black pants, dark orange shirt, long black coat, but moved like something ancient and deadly. Monsters swarmed him, and he didn't dodge so much as simply exist elsewhere when claws slashed through his previous position. More importantly, his aura didn't make her sick. If anything, it felt familiar, somehow. A massive beast, 10 meters tall with 6 arms, each ending in scything blades, crashed through smaller monsters, charging directly at the blonde stranger. Hae-In moved without thinking, flash-stepping to intercept. Her sword sliced through chitin armor, but barely penetrated. The monster roared, swinging massive limbs. Shadow spikes erupted beneath the creature, impaling it from below. The blonde man appeared beside her, his expression neutral. "I had it handled," he said. "You're in Hunter Association jurisdiction," she countered, dodging a scything arm. "Unregistered magic use during an active breach is prohibited." He actually smiled at that, a quick, subtle thing that vanished immediately. "Haven't been back long enough for paperwork." Together they moved around the creature, her sword severing tendons while his shadows restrained limbs. They fought in unexpected synchronization, as though they'd trained together for years. When the monster finally collapsed, dissolving into mana, Hae-In turned to her impromptu partner. "Who are you?" "Nobody important." His eyes tracked something beyond her. "Duck." She dropped instinctively as shadows arced over her head, spearing a flying creature that had approached silently from behind. "Seemed important to that guy," she said, straightening. "Naruto." He offered after a pause. "My name's Naruto. Hae-In, S-rank hunter." She held his gaze. "What exactly are you?" The gate pulsed violently, interrupting their conversation. The tear widened, and temperature plummeted. Ice crystals formed in the air. "That's not right," Naruto muttered, eyes narrowing. "Two elemental signatures. Fire and ice." Hae-In's communicator buzzed. Minho's voice came through, panicked, "Energy signatures are destabilizing. We're seeing a second gate overlapping the first, it's a dual breach." "Impossible," Hae-In said. "Gates don't merge. This isn't natural." Naruto stepped forward, shadows coiling around his arms. "Someone's forcing this." From the gate emerged a new wave, monsters of living flame alongside creatures of jagged ice. They should have neutralized each other, but instead moved in coordinated patterns, targeting evacuation routes. "The civilians," Hae-In started. "I'll handle the gate." Naruto's eyes shifted, blue giving way to crimson with slitted pupils. "You protect the people. You can't handle an S-rank gate alone, much less whatever this is," she argued. "Watch me." Power rolled off him in waves. The shadows around him deepened, gained dimension, became almost solid. His coat fluttered as 9 shadow tails formed behind him. Hae-In wanted to argue further, but fire-wreathed monsters were approaching the southern barrier where evacuation was still ongoing. She made her choice. "Don't die, mystery man." She flash-stepped away, sword already cleaving through the first monster reaching for fleeing civilians. Naruto watched her go, silently appreciating both her skill and decisiveness. Humans never failed to surprise him, even after all this time. He turned toward the corrupted gate. It had been centuries since he'd directly intervened in human affairs, content to watch from the shadows. But this had the fingerprints of old enemies. The gate pulsed again, ice and fire monsters continuing to emerge. He reached into the well of power he usually kept carefully restrained, the legacy of both Kurama and what came after. Shadow energy mixed with divine chakra, the mark of his ascension. "Arise," he commanded. The shadows beneath the monsters animated, becoming three-dimensional. Clawed hands reached up, dragging creatures back into darkness. His shadow soldiers, formed from the echoes of those he'd encountered across centuries, materialized beside him. ANBU masks, samurai armor, modern tactical gear, a timeline of warriors stretching back to when he was merely human. Naruto flash-stepped to the gate's edge, avoiding elemental blasts from creatures trying to defend the breach. His hands formed seals, movements preserved from another life, another time, now channeling different energies. Seal. Shadow chains erupted from his palms, wrapping around the dual-natured gate. He could feel resistance, someone on the other side, actively fighting his intervention. Someone who shouldn't exist. The resistance had a familiar signature. Frost chakra. A memory from before his ascension. Impossible, he muttered. The chains tightened, and Naruto pulled. The gate resisted, then began to shrink. Monsters still within its boundary screeched as they were forcibly dragged back to their dimension. Ice formed along the chains, trying to shatter them, while flames licked at the shadows. Naruto didn't flinch. Divine chakra reinforced his constructs, unaffected by elemental counters. With a final pull, the gate collapsed with a thunderclap of displaced air. He released his hold on the shadow army, letting them dissolve back into formless darkness. The divine chakra receded, his eyes returning to their normal blue. He'd revealed more than intended, but the nature of the threat justified it. A slow clap caught his attention. Impressive, said a man in an expensive suit, leaning against a damaged car. The association has been tracking anomalous energy signatures for weeks, but we didn't expect, whatever you are. Naruto regarded the newcomer. Human, but with augmented life force. A hunter, but not frontline combat. Hunter Association Intelligence Division, the man continued, showing an ID. Director Park Sung-jin. I'd very much like to discuss what just happened. Nothing to discuss. Naruto turned away. The threat's contained. For now. Park's voice hardened. But we both know that wasn't a normal gate breach. And you're not a normal person. Naruto paused. You should focus on the survivors. My colleagues are handling that. Park approached, stopping at a respectful distance. I'm more concerned with the fact that you command shadow constructs that match no known hunter ability, sealed a dual-element gate single-handedly, and appeared in our country with no record or registration. Not interested in becoming a government asset, Naruto said flatly. I'm offering resources, not recruitment. Park handed him a card. Something is changing with the gates. We've detected spatial anomalies, energy signatures that don't match known patterns. Whatever you're running from, or toward, is bigger than just you. Naruto took the card, mostly to end the conversation. I work alone. Funny, Park smiled thinly, Hae-In says the same thing. Hae-In cleaved through the final ice-wreathed creature, her blade leaving a glittering trail of frost particles. Around her, junior hunters stared in undisguised awe. She'd single-handedly defended the southern evacuation point against dozens of S-rank monsters. Perimeter secure, she reported into her communicator. South sector clear. Copy that, Minho responded. Gates been neutralized. Medical teams inbound for civilian assessment. She sheathed her sword, scanning the battlefield. Property damage was extensive, but casualties appeared minimal. A miracle, given the scale of the breach. Her thoughts returned to the blonde man, Naruto. His fighting style was unlike anything she'd encountered, and his aura, the way it felt clean rather than nausea-inducing. Impressive work, came a voice behind her. She turned to find Park Sung-jin approaching, his suit somehow immaculate despite the chaos. Director Park, she acknowledged with a slight bow. I wasn't aware Intelligence Division was on site. We weren't, until energy readings went off the charts. His eyes studied her carefully. You fought alongside the anomaly. Not a question. Temporarily. Combat necessity. And your sensitivity? Was it affected? Hae-In stiffened. Her condition wasn't secret, but she disliked it being discussed. Her inability to tolerate other hunters' magical auras had isolated her professionally and personally. No adverse effects, she admitted reluctantly. Fascinating. Park's eyes gleamed with interest that made her uneasy. I'd like you to take point on investigating him. I'm not Intelligence Division. No, but you're the only S-rank who can apparently stand being near him. The association needs to understand what we're dealing with. Hae-In frowned. He helped contain a catastrophic breach. Why the suspicion? Because nothing about him makes sense. Park handed her a tablet. Preliminary readings suggest power levels that shouldn't be possible. No registration with any hunter association worldwide. And the timing, with these anomalous gates appearing. The tablet showed energy signatures that made even Hae-In's experienced eyes widen. The power curve exceeded anything in their database, even theoretical models. What exactly am I looking for? She asked. His intentions. His origins. Whether he's an asset or threat. Park reclaimed the tablet. Use your discretion on approach. Your official orders will simply show reassignment to anomalous gate investigation. Hae-In wanted to refuse. She worked alone for good reason. But the memory of fighting alongside Naruto, the strange synchronicity, the absence of nausea, sparked unwanted curiosity. Fine, she conceded. But I'd do this my way. No surveillance teams, no handlers. Agreed. Just keep channels open. Park turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. He mentioned not being back long. Back from where, I wonder? Naruto sat cross-legged atop Seoul Tower, invisible to normal perception. The cityscape sprawled below, lights coming on as evening approached. Emergency vehicles still swarmed the breach site, but normalcy was already reasserting itself. Humans were resilient that way. He closed his eyes, extending senses beyond physical limitations. The gate energy had left traces, corrupt, tainted signatures that shouldn't exist in this reality. Someone had deliberately merged two elemental dungeons, forcing incompatible energies to coexist. Someone with knowledge of powers beyond this world. Watching the cleanup, came a voice behind him. Naruto didn't turn. He'd sensed her approach, the hunter from before. Hae-In. Her energy signature was distinctive, focused, disciplined, but with an unusual resonance he couldn't quite place. How did you find me? He asked. She sat beside him, uninvited. You're not as invisible as you think. Not to someone who tracks energy signatures for a living. That was concerning. His concealment techniques should have been impenetrable to human perception. The association wants to debrief you, she continued. I noticed. Your director Park was very persistent. He sent me as the official approach. She didn't look at him, instead watching the city below. Apparently I'm the only S-rank who doesn't get sick around you. That caught his attention. Sick. I have a condition. Other hunters' magical auras make me physically ill. Stronger hunters, worse symptoms. She finally turned to him. But you, nothing. Naruto considered this. Interesting that some humans could sense the divine aspect of his energy. A genetic quirk, perhaps, or an adaptation to this world's unique mana structure. So what are you? She pressed. Those weren't normal shadow abilities. No hunter can seal a gate solo, much less a dual manifestation. I'm just passing through, he deflected. Bullshit. She didn't raise her voice, but intensity radiated from her. I saw those shadow constructs. I felt the energy you released. That wasn't hunter magic. Naruto stood, looking out over the city. For centuries, he'd observed from afar, never directly intervening. The Shadow Monarch existed in memory only, a legend from a world that had long since moved on without him. Yet here he was, drawn back by disturbances that echoed across dimensions. If I told you I'm something that shouldn't exist anymore, would that satisfy you? He finally said. No. She stood beside him. But it would be a start. The air shifted suddenly, a pressure change that made Naruto tense. Across the city, another tier formed in reality. Not a full gate, but a probe, someone testing boundaries. Another breach? Hae-In was already reaching for her sword. No. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Something worse. He grabbed her arm without thinking and flash-stepped, moving faster than human perception to a rooftop overlooking the new disturbance. Hae-In staggered slightly when they reappeared. What the? She steadied herself. How did you look? He pointed at the spatial distortion forming above an office building. Unlike the chaotic gates that connected to monster dimensions, this tear was precise, a perfect circle of distorted space. Through it, stars in unfamiliar patterns were visible. Not a monster dimension. Something else. A slender hand reached through the portal. Pale, with alien elegance. Then a figure emerged, white-haired, horned, with pale lavender eyes that had no pupils. Atsutsuki, Naruto whispered, the name foreign on his tongue after so long. The figure hovered above the city, seemingly uninterested in the humans below. It extended a hand, and energy pulsed outward, invisible to normal perception, but Naruto could see it scanning, searching. For him. What is that? Hae-In's hand tightened on her sword hilt. Not a monster, but not human either. Something from my past. Naruto pulled shadows around them, deepening their concealment. We need to go. Now. Go. That thing is in the middle of a civilian zone. It's not after civilians. It won't harm them if it doesn't find what it's looking for. Her eyes narrowed. And what's it looking for? The Atsutsuki turned in their direction, pale eyes scanning. Naruto grabbed Hae-In and flash-stepped again, moving kilometers away in an instant. Me, he answered when they reappeared in an empty warehouse district. It's looking for me. Hae-In's head spun, from the instantaneous transportation, from the revelations, from the alien being she'd just witnessed. She steadied herself against a wall, trying to process. Start talking, she demanded. What was that thing? Who are you really? And why is it looking for you? Naruto paced, shadows unconsciously swirling around his feet. They're called Atsutsuki. They consume worlds. Harvest their energy. They should be extinct, or at least banished from this dimensional plane. And you know this how? He stopped, fixing her with those impossibly blue eyes. Because I helped defeat them. A very long time ago. How long? Centuries. Hae-In wanted to laugh, to dismiss his claim as insanity. But she'd seen him fight. Seen him command shadows like they were extensions of himself. Felt his aura that defied everything she knew about magical energy. You're saying you're, what? Immortal? Not exactly. He leaned against a support beam. I ascended. Became something beyond human. The shadow abilities. The tales I saw form during the fight. Understanding dawned. You're the Shadow Monarch. His expression shifted, surprise, then wariness. That name means something to you? There are legends. Ancient texts in the Hunter Association archives about a being who commanded death itself. Most consider it mythology. She studied him. Clearly not. I haven't used that title in a very long time. Her communicator buzzed insistently. She checked it, multiple messages from headquarters about an unknown energy signature. The Atsutsuki's appearance hadn't gone unnoticed. My people detected your visitor, she said. They'll be scrambling response teams. They can't fight it. Not with conventional means. Then what do you suggest? Let it roam free. Naruto closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, resolution hardened his features. I'll draw it away from the city. Away from people. And then what? Fight it alone. It's not at full strength. Just a scout. I can handle it. Hae-In crossed her arms. If it's looking for you, and you're the Shadow Monarch of legend, then I'm not letting you face it alone. This isn't your fight. When something that powerful enters my jurisdiction, it becomes my fight. Her voice left no room for argument. Besides, you said it yourself, it's after you, not civilians. That means partnering with you is the fastest way to neutralize the threat. Naruto studied her, seeming to weigh options. Finally, he nodded. Your sword, it can channel your energy? Yes. It might be effective, then. The Atsutsuki are vulnerable to certain energy frequencies. He straightened. We need to move. It will track my energy signature eventually, no matter how I mask it. Where? Somewhere isolated. He thought for a moment. The abandoned industrial zone east of the city. Minimal civilian presence, contained area. Hae-In nodded, already sending a brief message to headquarters, investigating anomaly with specialist. Maintain distance. Will report. How do we get there? More of your, instant movement. Too risky. It might sense the energy spike. He headed for the exit. We drive. The industrial zone loomed ahead, skeletal buildings silhouetted against the night sky. Hae-In parked her car at the perimeter, away from their planned confrontation site. No sense losing her transportation if things went badly. Naruto walked beside her, silent and focused. Throughout the drive, she'd pressed for more information, receiving fragments that painted an incomplete picture. A different world. A war against godlike beings. A sacrifice that elevated him beyond humanity. How will it find us? She asked as they entered the complex. It won't have to. Naruto stopped in a clearing between abandoned factories. I'll let it find me. Before she could question him further, he closed his eyes. The shadows around him deepened, then pulsed outward like a beacon. Power rolled off him in waves, making the air feel heavy. What are you doing? She hissed. Announcing myself. His eyes opened, now crimson with slitted pupils. Be ready. The air split open 20 meters away, the perfect circular portal reappearing. The white-haired being emerged, floating above the ground. Up close, its alienness was even more apparent, skin too smooth, proportions subtly wrong, eyes that held no emotion. Found you, it said, voice melodic but hollow. The anomaly. Naruto stepped forward. Why are you here, Atsutsuki? Your kind was banished from this dimensional plane. The being tilted its head, studying him. Curious. You know of us, yet your energy signature is, confused. Neither human nor divine. An abomination. Answer the question, Hae-In called, drawing her sword. Why are you in this world? The Atsutsuki barely glanced at her. A human defender. How quaint. Its attention returned to Naruto. We felt the disturbance. The gates between dimensions weakening. And beneath it all, your signature. The missing piece. Missing piece of what? Naruto demanded. The divine fruit, of course. What was stolen from us? The being raised a hand. What will be reclaimed? Energy gathered in its palm, a sphere of compressed power that distorted space around it. Without warning, it launched the attack directly at Naruto. Shadows erupted from the ground, forming a barrier. The energy sphere collided with it, the resulting explosion throwing debris in all directions. Hae-In flash stepped aside, then charged, her sword trailing blue energy. The Atsutsuki dodged with inhuman grace, but Naruto appeared behind it, shadow blades extending from his arms. Together, they pressed the attack, Hae-In's precision strikes forcing the being to defend while Naruto's shadows limited its movement options. Interesting, the Atsutsuki commented, eerily calm despite fighting two opponents. The human actually affects me. Her energy has been altered. It extended both hands, releasing a pulse that knocked them backward. Hae-In crashed into a concrete wall, breath driven from her lungs. Naruto landed on his feet, shadows already forming new shapes around him. You cannot win, the being stated. I am merely a scout, yet you struggle. When the others arrive, others won't be arriving. Naruto's voice deepened, power saturating each word. I sealed this world once. I'll do it again. He slammed his palm to the ground. Shadow chains erupted upward, wrapping around the Atsutsuki's limbs. The being struggled, its calm facade cracking. Impossible, this technique, remember it? Naruto approached, eyes glowing. It stopped your ancestors. It'll stop you too. Hae-In pushed herself up, wincing at what felt like cracked ribs. The Atsutsuki was restrained but still dangerous, energy pulsing erratically around it. Finish it, she called, staggering forward. The being laughed, a chilling sound. Finish me? I'm already accomplished my mission. Its eyes fixed on Naruto. You revealed yourself, Shadow Monarch. The others will come now. They will reclaim what was taken. They can try. Naruto tightened the chains, shadows crawling up the being's body. The Atsutsuki smiled. Your human companion, her energy resonates with yours. How fascinating. Perhaps a descendant of those who followed you. The bloodlines must have thinned, but the connection remains. Naruto faltered, glancing at Hae-In. The momentary distraction was enough. The Atsutsuki twisted, one arm breaking free. It thrust its palm toward the portal it had created. The path is open, it said. The harvest begins anew. Energy surged into the portal, expanding it. Through the widening tear, shapes moved, more white figures, watching, waiting. Naruto cursed. Shadow tendrils shot from his back, impaling the Atsutsuki through its chest. The being gasped, then smiled. Too late, it whispered. Naruto's expression hardened. The shadows around him coalesced, forming a massive construct, a fox-like entity with 9 tails that towered over them. Its jaws closed around the Atsutsuki and the portal both, crushing them together. Reality shuddered. Light bent. The portal collapsed with a thunderclap that shattered windows throughout the industrial zone. Then silence. Naruto stood alone, the shadow fox dissipating around him. He turned to Hae-In, concern replacing the cold fury that had possessed him moments before. You're injured, he said, approaching. I'll live. She straightened despite the pain. What did it mean about others coming? About a harvest? Naruto's expression darkened. The Atsutsuki consume worlds. Harvest their energy by growing divine trees that drain all life. It's what they attempted in my world, centuries ago. And now they want to do it here. Yes. But something's changed. He looked troubled. The gates, the dimensional weaknesses, they shouldn't be possible. The barriers I helped create when I ascended were supposed to prevent this. When you ascended to become the Shadow Monarch, she clarified. He nodded slowly. Yes. Though that name came later, from stories told by those who remained. Hae-In sheathed her sword, mind racing. The Atsutsuki said my energy resonates with yours. What did it mean? I don't know. But his tone suggested otherwise. We should get you medical attention. Her communicator buzzed again, headquarters demanding updates. She ignored it. That fox shadow, she said. The tails. The legends mention a 9-tailed beast that served the Shadow Monarch. Not served, Naruto corrected quietly. Kurama was my partner. My friend. Eventually, we became something new together. The pieces weren't quite fitting, but Hae-In could sense they were approaching something important. The Shadow Monarch legends, the gates appearing worldwide, this Atsutsuki threat, they connected somehow. We need to report this, she said finally. The association needs to know what we're facing. They won't understand. Won't believe it. Then make them understand. She stepped closer, ignoring the pain in her ribs. You've been hiding, watching from shadows. But if what that thing said is true, if more are coming, then we need you fighting alongside us, not from the sidelines. Naruto studied her, something unreadable in his expression. Why do you trust me? You barely know what I am. I don't fully trust you, she admitted. But I trust what I saw today. You protected people. Fought alongside me without hesitation. That counts for something. He seemed to weigh her words, centuries of caution warring with immediate necessity. All right, he finally said. But we do this carefully. The wrong information in the wrong hands could cause panic. Agreed. She extended her hand. Partners, then. At least until we stop the apocalypse. A ghost of a smile crossed his face as he took her hand. Partners. Hunter Association headquarters buzzed with activity despite the late hour. Analysts pored over energy readings, tactical teams prepared equipment, and medical staff treated those injured during the gate breach. Park Sung-jin stood before a wall of monitors, studying footage from various sources. Most showed the gate incident, but one screen displayed a thermal image of the industrial zone, a massive energy burst that briefly formed what looked like a giant animal before disappearing. Sir, an analyst called. Agent Cha is requesting entrance. She has a guest. Park turned as the security doors opened. Hae-In entered, moving stiffly, injured but hiding it well. Behind her came the blonde man from the gate incident, his expression carefully neutral as he surveyed the command center. Director Park, Hae-In said formally. I'd like to introduce Naruto, the Shadow Monarch. He has information about today's incidents that you need to hear. Conversation stopped. All eyes turned to the newcomer. Shadow Monarch? Park repeated, eyes widening slightly. The mythological figure? Not so mythological, Naruto replied. And we have a problem bigger than unusual gates. Park gestured toward a conference room. Then by all means, enlighten us. As they moved toward the private space, Park noticed something odd. Hae-In walked close to the stranger, closer than she ever allowed anyone with magical abilities. Her usual discomfort around other hunters was conspicuously absent. Very interesting. Inside the conference room, senior staff gathered quickly. Naruto remained standing while others took seats, his posture suggesting both alertness and ancient patience. Let's start with the obvious, Park began. You sealed an S-rank dual-element gate single-handedly. Then apparently confronted an unknown entity in the industrial zone. Care to explain? The entity was an Atsutsuki scout, Naruto stated. An interdimensional being that consumes worlds. The gates you've been experiencing are symptoms of weakening dimensional barriers. Skeptical glances passed between staff members. That's quite a claim, Park said carefully. It's the truth. Hae-In interjected. I saw it myself. Fought it alongside him. And why would these Atsutsuki be interested in our world? Naruto's eyes flashed briefly. Energy. Your gates connect to dimensions containing magical creatures, yes. Each time you defeat them, energy is released, harvested by hunters. The Atsutsuki want that energy, all of it, regardless of the cost to your world. You speak as if you're not from here, noted a senior analyst. I'm not. Originally. Naruto looked around the room. I came from a world the Atsutsuki tried to harvest centuries ago. We stopped them, at great cost. I changed in the process. Became something else. The Shadow Monarch of legend, Park mused. Able to command the dead, if the stories are accurate. Not the dead. Shadows. Echoes. Naruto's expression remained neutral. The details aren't important. What matters is that the Atsutsuki have found this world, and they're coming. If they're so dangerous, why haven't we detected them before, demanded the tactical commander. Because I sealed the dimensional pathways they use. Naruto's voice hardened. Something or someone is weakening those seals. The dual-element gate today wasn't natural, it was forced, manipulated from outside. Park leaned forward. Are you suggesting someone is helping these Atsutsuki? Or being manipulated by them? Naruto's eyes narrowed. The scout mentioned a harvest beginning. That means they've already established a foothold somewhere. Hae-In pulled up satellite imagery on the conference room display. We need to look for unusual energy signatures, particularly around existing gate locations. If they're manipulating gates, that's where they'll focus. The room erupted into discussion, search parameters, detection methods, response protocols. Through it all, Naruto remained silent, watching with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Park approached him during the commotion. You could have remained hidden. Why reveal yourself now? Naruto glanced at Hae-In, who was directing analysts with firm precision despite her injuries. Some battles can't be fought from the shadows, he said simply. Dawn broke over Seoul as the emergency session finally concluded. Action items assigned, teams dispatched, a global hunter alert prepared with carefully worded warnings about interdimensional incursions. Hae-In found Naruto on the headquarters rooftop, watching the sunrise. She joined him at the railing, finally feeling the full extent of her injuries now that adrenaline had faded. Medical wanted to check you too, she said. You disappeared before they could. I heal quickly. He didn't look at her. Your people are efficient. Adaptable. Hunters have to be. She studied his profile. You didn't tell them everything. It wasn't a question. No. He finally turned to her. Some truths would only complicate matters. Like why my energy resonates with yours. He hesitated, then nodded. The Atsutsuki wasn't wrong about that. There is a connection, but it's complex. Try me. Naruto sighed, looking back at the city. When I sealed the dimensional pathways, I didn't do it alone. Others helped, friends, comrades. Some remained behind as guardians while I ascended to maintain the greater seals. And you think I'm descended from these guardians? It would explain the resonance. The fact that my aura doesn't affect you negatively like other magical signatures. His eyes met hers. It would also explain your affinity for blades. Images flashed through Hae-In's mind, family heirlooms, strange martial arts scrolls passed down generations, her grandmother's stories about warrior ancestors. My family has always produced hunters, she said slowly. Even before the gates appeared. The bloodlines would have thinned over centuries, but certain traits persist. Naruto's expression softened slightly. Your fighting style, it reminded me of someone I knew. Someone important. Before she could press further, her communicator buzzed urgently. The message made her blood run cold. Multiple gate breaches, she reported. Simultaneous openings across the city. All showing the same dual-element signature as yesterday. Naruto's expression hardened. It's starting. What is? Their counter-move. He straightened. The scout failed, so they're creating chaos. Stretching your defenses while they search for what they want. And what exactly do they want? His eyes met hers, ancient knowledge and grim certainty mixing in their depths. Me, he said simply. Or more specifically, what I carry. The power of the Shadow Monarch. Hae-In's retort was cut short as another alert came through, this one showing a thermal image of an enormous energy signature materializing near the city's central park. That's not a normal gate, she said. No. Naruto's shadows began swirling around him. That's their herald. And he's calling me out. Then we answer together. Hae-In checked her sword, ignoring the protest from her injured ribs. Partners, remember? For the first time, Naruto smiled fully, a bright expression that transformed his face, making him look almost human again. Partners, he agreed. As they moved toward the new threat, neither noticed Director Park watching from the shadows of the stairwell, recording their conversation on a specialized device. His expression was unreadable as he replayed Naruto's words, "The power of the Shadow Monarch." Park touched his communicator. "Prepare the containment protocols. And contact our friends at the International Hunter Coalition. Tell them, we found something they've been looking for." Chapter 2, The Monarch's burdened morning sunlight hit Seoul's skyline as Naruto and Hae-In raced toward Central Park. Emergency sirens wailed across the city. 3 more gates had opened in the last 10 minutes, all showing the same dual-element signature. "They're creating a diversion," Naruto said, leaping across rooftops with Hae-In keeping pace. "Stretching your forces thin. The association's mobilizing everything we've got." Hae-In checked her communicator as they ran. S-rank teams redirected from across the country, but they won't arrive for hours. "We don't have hours." They stopped at the park's edge. What waited wasn't a gate, not exactly. More like a tear in reality that pulsed with cold blue energy. Ice crystals formed in the air around it, freezing nearby trees solid. That energy signature. Hae-In narrowed her eyes. "It's different from yesterday's Atsutsuki." "Because it isn't one." Naruto's expression darkened. "This is something else. Something that shouldn't exist anymore." The tear widened. A figure stepped through, tall, regal, with pale blue skin and armor made of living ice. Frost formed with each step as it surveyed the park. "Shadow Monarch," it called, voice echoing unnaturally. "You've hidden long enough." Naruto stepped forward, shadows curling around his fingers. "Frost Monarch. You died centuries ago." The ice being laughed, the sound like cracking glaciers. "Death is rarely permanent for beings like us. You should know that better than most." Hae-In drew her sword. "What is this thing?" "A monarch, one of 8 who once battled for control of worlds." Naruto's eyes never left his opponent. "I destroyed them in my world. Apparently, they found another way back." "Not back." The Frost Monarch smiled, revealing crystalline teeth. "Forward. Into new worlds with new vessels." Its cold eyes shifted to Hae-In. "Interesting. You found a descendant of your old allies." "How, sentimental." Frost energy gathered around the monarch's hands. "The rulers thought you had won, Shadow King. Thought the war was over. But cycles merely repeat with new players." It attacked without warning, a wave of absolute zero cold that flash froze everything in its path. Naruto grabbed Hae-In and vanished in a swirl of shadows, reappearing 20 meters away. "Stay back," he warned her. "His power is, like hell." Hae-In's sword glowed with energy. "This is my city." The Frost Monarch attacked again, ice spears materializing and launching in rapid succession. Naruto's shadows formed a barrier while Hae-In flash-stepped around it, closing distance with surprising speed. Her sword connected with the monarch's arm, cutting deep. Blue energy flashed where steel met frozen flesh. The being roared, more in surprise than pain. "A human blade that harms me? Impossible." "Believe it," Hae-In snarled, ducking under a retaliatory strike. Naruto joined the attack, shadow blades extending from his arms as he engaged the monarch directly. They moved with blinding speed, ice against shadow, cold against darkness. "You've grown weak," the Frost Monarch taunted as they clashed. "Centuries playing observer has dulled your edge. And you're just a fragment of what you were," Naruto countered, shadows piercing the being's defenses. A pale echo in a borrowed form. The monarch stumbled back, wounds leaking blue energy. "Perhaps. But I'm not alone." The tear behind him pulsed, widening further. Through it, Hae-In glimpsed a frozen landscape and more blue figures watching. The Atsutsuki breached the first barrier, the monarch continued. weakened the seals you so carefully constructed. Now we follow, claiming what should have been ours. Naruto's eyes flashed red. You'll fail, just like before. Will I? The monarch smiled coldly. My forces already move throughout your precious human world. Gates corrupted, monsters enhanced, chaos spreading. All while a new vessel for the true Shadow Monarch rises. True Shadow Monarch? Hae-In questioned, maintaining combat stance. He means the usurper, came a new voice from behind them. Hae-In turned, keeping the Frost Monarch in her peripheral vision. A man stood at the park's edge, tall, lean, with dark hair and cold eyes. She recognized him immediately. Sung Jin-woo, she breathed. National rank hunter. One of the most powerful hunters alive, possibly the strongest in Korea. But something was wrong. Shadows clung to him unnaturally, and his eyes held a faint purple glow that hadn't been there in press photos. The true heir, the Frost Monarch said, satisfaction in his voice. One who will use the shadow power as it was meant to be used. Jin-woo stepped forward, his own shadows writhing around him. You stole what wasn't yours to take, he said directly to Naruto. The power of shadows belongs to those who use it, not those who hide it. Naruto stood perfectly still, assessing the newcomer. You don't understand what you've gotten involved with. I understand enough. Jin-woo's shadows formed jagged shapes behind him, crude imitations of Naruto's abilities. While you've hidden away, watching worlds burn, humans have fought and died against the gates. Where were you when my family was slaughtered by S-rank monsters? Where was the mighty Shadow Monarch then? The Frost Monarch laughed. See how easily humans turn. Give them a taste of power and truth, and they become such perfect vessels. Hae-In realized what was happening. Jin-woo, he's using you. The monarchs aren't allies, they're parasites. Save your warnings. Jin-woo's cold gaze never left Naruto. I've seen what he really is. What he's done, and failed to do. Naruto tensed. What did they show you? Everything. The Fourth Great War. Your ascension. The centuries you've spent watching worlds die rather than intervening. Jin-woo's shadows pulsed. You abandoned your responsibility. I won't. The Frost Monarch stepped back, clearly enjoying the confrontation. The challenge is issued, Shadow King. Will you fight your would-be successor? Or surrender the power you've neglected? Naruto's expression remained unreadable, but Hae-In noticed something flicker in his eyes, not fear, but something almost like regret. You don't want my burden, Naruto said quietly to Jin-woo. You don't know what it truly costs. I know exactly what it costs. Jin-woo's voice hardened. I've paid it already, watching everyone I love die while power remained just out of reach. He attacked without warning, shadows surging forward like spears. Naruto deflected them easily, his own shadows moving with fluid precision where Jin-woo's seemed brutal and unrefined. You've been corrupted, Naruto said, making no counterattack. The monarchs have twisted your perception. Liar. Jin-woo pressed harder, shadows forming crude soldiers that charged Naruto. They showed me the truth you hide. Hae-In moved to intercept the Frost Monarch, who was attempting to circle behind Naruto. Don't even think about it, she warned, sword raised. The monarch smiled. Brave little descendant. But I'm not your concern. Ice exploded beneath her feet, throwing her backward. Before she could recover, the frozen landscape beyond the tier shifted, and dozens of ice creatures poured through, spreading outward toward the city. Our invasion begins, the Frost Monarch announced. While you battle among yourselves, we claim this world. Jin-woo faltered, witnessing the creatures spreading toward civilian areas. That wasn't our agreement. The humans were to be spared. Agreements change, the monarch replied dismissively. Power demands sacrifice. Naruto seized the moment of distraction, shadows wrapping around Jin Woo, immobilizing him. Listen to me, he insisted. They're using you exactly as they used others before. They don't share power, they consume it. Jin Woo struggled against the restraints. Like you're any different? You've had this power for centuries and done nothing with it. You don't understand what. A massive ice spear shot toward them. Naruto released Jin Woo to deflect it, his attention split between too many threats. The ice creatures, Hae-In called, regaining her feet. They're heading for populated areas. Go, Naruto said immediately. Stop them. I'll handle these two. You can't fight both, I won't be fighting. His eyes met hers, conveying something she couldn't fully interpret. Trust me. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded and Flash stepped away, pursuing the ice monster spreading through the park's exit points. Naruto turned back to face both monarchs, one original, one corrupted human vessel. You made a mistake coming here, he said, shadows deepening around him. The Frost Monarch laughed. Did we? You're alone, weakened by centuries of restraint, while we grow stronger by the moment. You misunderstand. Naruto's eyes shifted fully to crimson. I didn't mean you made a tactical error. I meant you made an existential one. Power erupted around him, not just shadows now, but golden energy that mixed with the darkness, creating something new. The ground cracked beneath his feet as reality itself seemed to bend. You want to see the true Shadow Monarch? His voice resonated with power that made both opponents take involuntary steps back. Let me remind you why your kind feared me. Hae-In raced through streets already becoming battlegrounds. Ice creatures, twisted parodies of animals and humans, attacked anything that moved. Hunter Association forces had established a perimeter, but they were outmatched by both numbers and the creature's unusual composition. Her sword cleaved through 3 monsters in a single arc, her enhanced speed allowing her to move between civilian groups and the attacking forces. S-Rank Hunter Cha, Situation Report. Her communicator crackled with Director Park's voice. Ice creatures throughout the northern sector, she replied, ducking under a creature's attack before decapitating it. Unknown origin, but connected to an entity calling itself the Frost Monarch. We're picking up similar breaches across the city. And energy readings off the charts from Central Park. That would be Naruto. She'd felt the power spike even from here. The Shadow Monarch is engaging the primary threat, she said, choosing her words carefully. But we have another problem, Sung Jin-Woo has been compromised. Silence on the comm line. Then, explain. He's working with these entities. Claims to be the true Shadow Monarch. His abilities have been altered. More silence. Hae-In could almost hear Park recalculating strategies. Can the Shadow Monarch handle both threats? Yes. She answered without hesitation, surprising herself with her certainty. But we need to protect civilians from these ice creatures. They're targeting population centers. Understood. All available S-rank teams are being redirected. Hold your position until reinforcements arrive. The line went dead. Hae-In sheathed her sword, breathing hard. Around her, ice creatures continued to spread, but hunter teams were engaging them at intersections, creating defensive lines. She glanced back toward Central Park, where energy lit the sky with unnatural colors. The fate of the city, perhaps the world, rested on Naruto's shoulders. And somehow, despite knowing him for barely a day, she trusted him completely. Jin-Woo staggered under the pressure of Naruto's unleashed power. The shadows he commanded flickered, weakening as they came into proximity with the true Shadow Monarch's abilities. This isn't possible, he gasped. The monarchs said you'd grown weak. They lied. Naruto stood unchanged amid swirling energy. Just as they lied about everything else. The Frost Monarch retreated toward the dimensional tear, frost armor cracking under the strain of Naruto's aura. This changes nothing. The invasion has begun. Your precious humans die while you posture. You've seen a fraction of what I can do, Naruto replied calmly. I could extinguish your existence with a thought. Then why haven't you? Jinwoo demanded, still defiant despite his weakened state. Why watch from the shadows when you have this kind of power? Naruto turned to him, expression softening slightly. Because power without restraint leads to exactly what you see before you. The monarchs. The Atsutsuki. Beings who believe might makes right. The park around them had transformed, trees crystallized from the frost monarch's power, ground cracked from the energy Naruto released. A microcosm of the destruction that could engulf the world. They showed me worlds burning, Jinwoo said, voice quieter now. Said you watched it happen. I intervened where I could without disrupting the balance. Direct interference causes ripples, consequences that spread beyond imagination. Naruto's eyes returned to their normal blue, though the power around him remained. But they wouldn't show you that. The Frost Monarch snarled. Enough philosophy. Fight or surrender, Shadow King. I choose option 3. Naruto formed a series of hand signs, movements preserved from his human life. Sealing technique, divine shadow prison. Shadows erupted from the ground beneath the Frost Monarch, wrapping around it with golden-edged darkness. The being howled as the shadows constricted, pulling it away from the dimensional tear. Impossible. Your sealing abilities were bound when you ascended. I never stopped being a shinobi, Naruto replied simply. Even as a god. The shadows completely encased the Frost Monarch, hardening into a black crystalline prison. Inside, the being's form blurred, then stilled as the sealing completed. Jinwoo watched in stunned silence. The shadows around him flickered, then dissipated entirely as their source, the Frost Monarch's influence, was contained. What did you do to me? He asked, looking at his hands as the shadow power abandoned him. I didn't do anything. Naruto approached the dimensional tear, which was starting to destabilize without the monarch's presence. The shadows were never truly yours. You were being possessed, used as a vessel. My family. Jinwoo swayed slightly. They promised to bring back my family. Another lie. Naruto's voice softened. I'm sorry. The dimensional tear collapsed with a thunderclap, leaving only normal space behind. Around them, the park remained devastated, a frozen, fractured landscape. Jinwoo fell to his knees. I was so certain, they showed me visions. The monarchs specialize in manipulation. They find your deepest desires and twist them. Naruto picked up the crystalline prison containing the Frost Monarch. You're not the first they've deceived. Won't be the last. What happens now? Now. Naruto looked toward the city, where battles against ice creatures continued. Now we clean up this mess. Then prepare for worse to come. Hae-In dispatched the last ice creature in her sector, breathing hard as her sword's glow faded. Around her, hunter teams secured the area, medics attending to injured civilians. Her communicator buzzed with updates, similar situations across the city, ice creatures disintegrating as suddenly as they had appeared. Whatever Naruto had done, it had worked. Hae-In. Director Park's voice came through clearly. Return to Central Park immediately. The situation has evolved. Something in his tone made her uneasy. Evolved how? Just get here. She flash-stepped through streets, moving faster than human perception allowed. When she arrived at the park's edge, she understood Park's cryptic message. Hunter Association forces had established a perimeter around the devastated area. At the center stood Naruto, but not alone. Hunter teams surrounded him, weapons trained on his position. Containment specialists had erected energy barriers, their purpose unmistakable. They weren't protecting him. They were containing him. Director Park stood at the command post, expression unreadable as she approached. What is this? She demanded. Protocol, he replied simply. S-class containment for an entity of unknown power and intent. He just saved the city. After putting it at risk. Park gestured to where Jin-Woo sat, being examined by medical staff. National rank hunter compromised. Massive property damage. Dimensional incursion. All connected to his presence. That's bullshit and you know it. Park turned to her fully. What I know is that less than 48 hours ago, we had standard gates. Now we have interdimensional invasions, corrupted hunters, and beings of godlike power fighting in public parks. His voice hardened. What I know is that everything changed when he appeared. Hae-In stared at him in disbelief. So your solution is to treat him like a hostile? My solution is to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Park nodded toward a mobile command center. The International Hunter Coalition has taken an interest. Representatives are inbound. The coalition. Alarm bells rang in Hae-In's mind. The shadowy organization that coordinated hunter activities worldwide was notoriously ruthless in dealing with perceived threats. You contacted them without authorization. I am the authorization. Park's expression remained neutral. This is beyond national jurisdiction now. Hae-In pushed past him, heading toward the containment zone. Association agents moved to block her path. Let her through, Park called. She's our best connection to the entity. The agent stepped aside reluctantly. As Hae-In approached the energy barrier, she could see Naruto standing calmly at its center, seemingly unbothered by the containment. The crystalline prison containing the Frost Monarch hovered beside him, suspended in shadow energy. Quite the welcome committee, he commented as she neared. This isn't my doing, she said quickly. The association is overreacting. Are they? His blue eyes studied her. From their perspective, an unknown entity with immense power appeared just as unprecedented threats emerged. Caution seems reasonable. His calm acceptance frustrated her. You could break these barriers with a thought. Why allow this? Because running would confirm their suspicions. Cooperation builds trust. They've called in the coalition. That got a reaction, a slight narrowing of his eyes. Interesting. Faster than I expected. You knew this would happen. I've observed your world long enough to recognize patterns. Fear drives organizations to seek control. Hae-In glanced back at the command post, where Park was engaged in conversation with newly arrived officials. What really happened with Jin-Woo, she asked, keeping her voice low. The Frost Monarch found a vessel susceptible to manipulation. Someone with talent, ambition, and personal loss. Naruto's shadows shifted slightly around the crystalline prison. Jin-Woo was being prepared as a replacement. Shadow Monarch the real monarchs could control. Can they do that? Transfer your power? Not directly. But they can create a corrupted version by manipulating similar energies. His expression darkened. It's happened before. Before she could ask what he meant, Director Park approached with two figures in unmarked tactical gear, coalition representatives, no doubt. Time's up, Naruto said quietly. Remember, whatever happens, the real threat is still coming. Park stopped outside the barrier. Hunter Cha, please step away from the containment field. Why? Am I under suspicion too? Just procedure. The coalition has questions that require specialized settings. One of the coalition agents stepped forward, a woman with short silver hair and cold eyes. The entity will be transferred to a secure facility for assessment. Cooperation is appreciated but not required. Naruto smiled slightly. And if I choose not to cooperate? Then we move to containment protocols appropriate for your demonstrated threat level. Which would be? The woman didn't blink. Omega class. Reserved for extinction-level entities. Hae-In stepped between them. This is absurd. He contained the threat. Sealed the dimensional breach. Saved Jin-Woo from corruption. All capabilities that warrant careful study, the woman replied. Don't mistake containment for punishment, Hunter Cha. We simply seek understanding. Naruto's eyes met Hae-In's briefly, conveying something she couldn't quite read. Then he nodded. I'll cooperate, with conditions. He addressed the coalition agent directly. First, this prison stays with me. The entity inside is beyond your ability to contain. He gestured to the crystalline structure. Second, Hunter Cha serves as liaison. Third, full disclosure of your findings to the Korean Hunter Association. The agents exchanged glances. The woman nodded slightly. Acceptable, provided you submit to power suppression measures during transport. Of course. Hae-In wanted to protest but saw the subtle warning in Naruto's expression. He had a plan, clearly, one that required apparent compliance. The coalition facility is 2 hours from here, Park told her. You'll accompany the transport as requested. Full operational autonomy, but maintain communication protocols. Understood, she replied stiffly. As containment specialists prepared transport measures, Naruto allowed them to approach with power-suppressing devices. Before they activated them, he caught Hae-In's eye one last time. Remember, he said softly. Things aren't always what they seem. The suppressors activated, creating a visible dampening field around him. If they affected him at all, he showed no sign of it. The coalition transport moved through Seoul's streets, heavily armed and escorted. Hae-In sat across from Naruto in the specialized containment vehicle, watched by 4 guards with energy weapons trained on their guest. This seems excessive, she commented, loud enough for the guards to hear. Prudent, Naruto corrected mildly. Considering they don't know what I am. The crystalline prison containing the Frost Monarch sat between them, secured to the floor but still emanating cold that the vehicle's heating system struggled to counteract. What exactly is your plan here? She asked quietly. Observation. His eyes tracked something outside the vehicle's small windows. The coalition facility will be revealing. Revealing how? Instead of answering directly, he asked, what do you know about the coalition's founding? Hae-In frowned. Formed after the first S-rank gate incidents, when it became clear Hunter activities needed international coordination. Why? Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Global organization with extraordinary authority, established precisely when interdimensional threats emerged. She leaned closer, voice barely audible. You think they're compromised? I think nothing happens without reason. His eyes returned to hers. The monarchs and Atsutsuki wouldn't attempt invasion without preparation. Infiltration. Manipulation of existing power structures. The implications chilled her more than the Frost Monarch's prison. If the coalition, the organization coordinating Hunter activities worldwide, was compromised. We need evidence, she whispered. Precisely why I'm playing along. He glanced at the guards, who watched with impassive expressions. For now. The transport slowed, turning onto a private road leading away from the city. Through the windows, Hae-In glimpsed massive walls surrounding a compound that didn't appear on any official maps. Coalition Black Site, one of the guards announced unnecessarily. Prepare for processing. The vehicle passed through multiple security checkpoints before stopping in an underground loading bay. When the doors opened, Hae-In was surprised by the scale of the operation, dozens of personnel in unmarked tactical gear, advanced technology beyond what the Korean Hunter Association possessed, and security measures that would give an S-rank hunter pause. Impressive setup for an organization that officially doesn't exist, Naruto commented as they were escorted from the vehicle. The silver-haired woman from earlier met them at an internal checkpoint. Welcome to Research Facility Omega. I'm Director Kong. Her cold eyes assessed Naruto. Your cooperation simplifies matters considerably. Happy to oblige. His tone remained light, almost amused. I assume you have questions. Many. She gestured for them to follow. But first, we'll need to secure that. She pointed to the crystalline prison, which coalition agents approached with specialized equipment. I wouldn't, Naruto warned. The containment is specialized. Only I can maintain it safely. Director Kong studied him for a moment, then nodded to the agents, who backed away. Very well. But it will be placed in a secondary containment field during your interview. They were led through sterile corridors into the heart of the facility. Hae-In memorized their route, noting security measures and potential exit points. Whatever Naruto's plan, she wanted to be prepared. The interview room resembled a high-tech interrogation chamber crossed with a medical laboratory. Power dampening fields activated automatically as they entered, strong enough that even Hae-In felt her abilities diminish. Standard precaution, Director Kong explained, noting her reaction. Nothing personal. Naruto allowed coalition personnel to secure the Frost Monarch's prison in a separate containment field. Throughout the process, his expression remained neutral, almost bored. Now, Kong continued, let's begin with basic questions. What exactly are you? Complicated, Naruto replied. We have time. Do you? He glanced around the room. With gates destabilizing worldwide and interdimensional invaders already making landfall. Kang's expression didn't change. Our analysts suggest these incidents increase dramatically following your appearance. Correlation suggests causation. Or perhaps I appeared because the incidents began, Naruto countered. Drawn by disturbances I'm uniquely qualified to address. Which brings us back to my question, what are you? Naruto sighed, seemingly resigned. I was human once. A shinobi from a world not unlike yours, but with different rules governing its energy. During a war against godlike beings, the Atsutsuki, I underwent a transformation. Ascended beyond humanity. Ascended how? Merged with primordial energies. Became something new. He shrugged slightly. The Shadow Monarch, as legends eventually named me. Kong made notes on a tablet. And these Atsutsuki are the same beings attempting to breach our world now? Yes. Along with the monarchs, another set of interdimensional conquerors I sealed away centuries ago. Naruto nodded toward the crystalline prison. The Frost Monarch is one of 8. Arguably not the most dangerous. Why would these entities target Earth? Energy. Your world has developed a unique system, hunters harvesting magical energy from gates. It's essentially refined power, perfect for beings who consume worlds. Throughout the exchange, Hae-In watched Kong carefully. The director's questions seemed standard, but something felt off about her responses, too measured, too unsurprised. You mentioned sealing these threats centuries ago, Kong continued. Yet our records of dimensional disturbances only date back decades. The seals weakened gradually. Small breaches became larger. Eventually, they manifested as your gates, controlled ruptures releasing monsters rather than the entities themselves. Convenient explanation. Truth often is. Kong set down her tablet. Let's be direct. You claim to possess godlike power, arrived precisely when unprecedented threats emerged, and have knowledge no human could possess. Her voice hardened. From our perspective, you could easily be causing these events rather than responding to them. A reasonable concern, Naruto acknowledged. Which is why I'm sitting here answering questions rather than alternatives. The subtle reminder of his power hung in the air. Kang's expression didn't change, but Hae-In noticed her hand move slightly toward what was likely a concealed alarm. If you're truly an ally, Kong said carefully, you'll understand our need for certainty. We've prepared specialized assessments to verify your claims and capabilities. Tests, Naruto translated. You want to see what I can do? Precisely. And if I refuse? Then your credibility suffers, and we proceed with containment rather than collaboration. Naruto glanced at Hae-In briefly before returning his attention to Kong. I'll cooperate with reasonable tests. But Hunter Cha remains present as observer. Of course. Kong stood. We'll begin immediately. As they were escorted to another section of the facility, Hae-In moved closer to Naruto. You're playing along too easily, she whispered. What are you seeing that I'm not? Patterns, he replied softly. Watch the security personnel near the containment fields. Their movements. Their attention. She observed discreetly as they walked. At first, nothing seemed unusual, until she noticed that guards seemed more focused on the regular security doors than the high-value containment areas they passed. Almost as if they were watching for something coming from inside the facility, not outside. They're waiting for something, she realized. Naruto nodded slightly. Or someone. The testing chamber was massive, easily 50 meters across with reinforced walls and multiple observation decks. Energy dampening fields could be activated in sections, creating controlled testing zones. Impressive facility, Naruto commented as technicians prepared equipment. Built specifically for hunter research. Among other applications, Director Kong replied vaguely. We'll begin with baseline power assessment. Simple energy projection, if you would. Naruto stepped into the designated area. Any particular target? Mechanical drones deployed, forming a circle around him. These are designed to measure energy output. Simple projection toward any of them is sufficient. Hae-In watched from a separate observation area, still processing what Naruto had implied. If the coalition was compromised, this facility could be a trap rather than a research center. Naruto raised his hand casually, shadows gathering around his fingertips. He released a small burst, restrained but precise, that struck the nearest drone. The machine's sensors flashed as it recorded the energy. Interesting signature, one technician commented. Unlike standard hunter patterns. Again, please, Kong instructed. Maximum output this time. Naruto's expression remained neutral. You don't want that. We need accurate measurements. Your equipment can't handle my maximum output. Not without significant collateral damage. Kang's eyes narrowed slightly. Our systems are designed to contain S-rank hunter abilities. We'll manage. Naruto shrugged. Don't say I didn't warn you. He raised his hand again. This time, the shadows deepened, gaining density and dimension. Golden energy mixed with darkness as he channeled power, still clearly restrained, but significantly more than before. The energy pulse struck the drone, which immediately overloaded. Warning alarms blared as the machine's systems failed catastrophically, components melting from exposure. Sufficient? Naruto asked mildly. Technicians scrambled to shut down warning systems and deploy containment measures around the damaged equipment. Kang's expression remained impassive, but Hae-In noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, not fear, but calculation. Approximately 15% of S+ rank capacity, Kong noted. Interesting restraint. Naruto tilted his head slightly. You seem familiar with power scaling beyond conventional hunter capabilities. Theoretical models exist. Of course. His tone suggested he didn't believe her. The testing continued, measuring reaction times, energy manipulation, cognitive processing. Throughout, Naruto cooperated fully while clearly holding back, revealing enough to satisfy questions without demonstrating his true capabilities. After 2 hours, Kong called a break. We'll resume specialized testing after a brief recess. Hunter Cha, you're welcome to use our facilities if needed. As staff filed out, Hae-In approached Naruto in the testing area. They're gathering data, she said quietly. But for what? That's the question. His eyes tracked something on the ceiling, a specialized scanner moving in patterns that didn't seem related to the tests. Though I think we'll have answers soon. How soon? Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility, not the controlled warnings from the testing equipment, but facility-wide security alerts. Kang's voice came over the communication system. Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel to containment protocols. This is not a drill. Naruto smiled slightly. That soon. Chaos erupted throughout the facility. Security personnel rushed past their testing chamber, heading toward what Hae-In estimated was the eastern wing. Through reinforced windows, she glimpsed emergency lights flashing. "Should we help?" she asked, hand moving to her sword. "Not yet." Naruto remained perfectly still, watching. "This isn't what it seems." Director Kong returned, her composed facade cracking slightly. "We need to move you to secure holding immediately. The facility is under attack." "By whom?" Naruto asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Unknown entities with energy signatures similar to the crystalline prison you brought." Kong gestured urgently. "We need to move. Now." As they were escorted through corridors, emergency bulkheads sealed behind them. Distant sounds of combat echoed, energy weapons discharging, structural damage, shouted orders. "The Frost Monarch's forces found us already?" Hae-In asked, maintaining the pretense. "Unlikely," Naruto replied. "The prison contains his consciousness completely. No signal could escape." Then who? Their escort rounded a corner and stopped abruptly. Ahead, the corridor was blocked, not by security measures, but by a tall figure with pale skin and white hair. Another Atsutsuki. Unlike the scout from the previous day, this one radiated power. Its blank, pupilless eyes surveyed them with cold interest. "Found you," it said simply. Director Kong didn't seem surprised. Instead, she stepped forward. "This area is secure. You weren't scheduled to appear until extraction." The Atsutsuki ignored her, focus entirely on Naruto. The Shadow Monarch. Finally. Understanding dawned on Hae-In. This isn't a breach. It's a rendezvous. Naruto nodded slightly. The coalition isn't compromised. They're collaborating. Kang's expression hardened. Collaboration implies equal partnership. We merely recognize the inevitable. She turned to the security team. Activate suppression field maximum. The dampening field intensified dramatically. Hae-In gasped as her abilities were completely suppressed, a sensation like being submerged in ice water. The guards raised specialized weapons, training them on Naruto. Predictable, he sighed. The Atsutsuki approached, unaffected by the suppression field. The elders will be pleased. The missing fragment, delivered as promised. Fragment? Hae-In managed, fighting through the suppression effects. The divine fruit, the being explained, as if to a child. The essence the Shadow Monarch stole during his ascension. The power that should have been ours. Naruto remained calm despite the weapons aimed at him. Your people always did have a selective memory about that incident. Kong stepped back, allowing the Atsutsuki to take center stage. The arrangement is simple. The coalition provides access to the Shadow Monarch, and in exchange, our world is spared the harvesting process. You believe that? Hae-In asked incredulously. They consume worlds. It's what they do. They harvest energy, Kong corrected. With the Shadow Monarch's power, they won't need to drain our world completely. A sustainable arrangement. You've been thoroughly deceived, Naruto said, almost pitying. But I suppose fear makes fools of even the intelligent. The Atsutsuki raised its hand toward Naruto. Enough talk. The extraction begins now. Energy gathered around its palm, pale, distorted power that seemed to bend light. The suppression field crackled as it interacted with the alien energy. I wouldn't, Naruto warned. The being smiled coldly. Your power is suppressed. Your allies distant. Your options exhausted. You're making assumptions. Naruto's eyes shifted to crimson. Dangerous ones. The suppression field surrounding him flickered, then failed completely. The shadows at his feet deepened, spreading outward despite the facility's countermeasures. Kong stepped back in alarm. Impossible. Those fields could contain an S+ rank hunter. I'm not a hunter. Naruto's voice echoed strangely as shadows crawled up the walls. I told you what I am. You should have listened. The Atsutsuki attacked, energy beam lancing from its palm directly at Naruto's chest. Shadows intercepted, absorbing the blast completely. The being's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty. The suppression technology, it began. Works exactly as designed, Naruto interrupted. On hunter abilities. Not on what I possess. He moved, faster than even Hae-In could track. One moment standing before them, the next directly before the Atsutsuki, hand pressed against its chest. You came seeking the divine fruit's power, he said quietly. Let me show you a fraction of what it can do. Golden energy mixed with shadow spiraled from his palm into the being's body. The Atsutsuki convulsed, white skin cracking as power too great to contain coursed through it. Stop! Kong commanded, signaling guards to fire. Energy weapons discharged, advanced technology designed to incapacitate S-rank threats. The blasts dissipated against Naruto's aura without effect. The Atsutsuki collapsed, body dissolving into particles of light as the energy overloaded its form. Naruto turned to Kong and the security team, expression calm despite the display of power. The coalition has made a grave miscalculation, he said. One that endangers every world, not just this one. Kong backed away, fear finally showing through her composed exterior. You don't understand. They showed us visions, worlds consumed, civilizations eradicated. Collaboration was the only option. They showed you what they wanted you to see. Naruto's shadows receded slightly. Just as they did with Jinwoo. Fear as a weapon, more effective than any direct attack. Hae-In felt the suppression field weakening as systems failed throughout the facility. She drew her sword, positioning herself beside Naruto. What now? She asked. Now we leave with our evidence. He gestured to the surveillance systems that had recorded everything. And prepare for what comes next. Kong seemed to regain some composure. You can't just walk out. This facility is designed to contain threats like you. No, Naruto corrected gently. It isn't. Shadows enveloped both him and Hae-In before Kong could respond. The world blurred around them, a sensation of movement so rapid that reality itself seemed to smear. When the shadows receded, they stood on a mountain overlooking the facility, kilometers away in an instant. Hae-In staggered slightly, disoriented by the transportation. What, how did you? Shadow walking, Naruto explained. Moving through dimensions where distance works differently. You could have done that at any time. Yes. Then why the charade? Why let them capture and test you at all? Naruto turned to the facility, now a distant structure barely visible in the valley below. Because sometimes you need to let enemies believe they've won to understand their true intentions. The coalition is working with the Atsutsuki. The full implications hit her. The organization coordinating hunter activities worldwide is compromised. Not everyone, Naruto clarified. Just key leadership positions. The Atsutsuki are manipulators, not conquerors, at least not initially. They find those susceptible to fear or ambition and exploit them. Hae-In sheathed her sword, mind racing. We need to warn the Hunter Association. Director Park may also be compromised, Naruto cautioned. We need to be selective about who we trust. So we're alone. Not entirely. Naruto reached into his coat, retrieving a small crystal that glowed with inner light. I took something during our departure. Hae-In recognized it as a data crystal, advanced storage technology used for secure information. Facility records. Complete data on Coalition Atsutsuki interactions. Dates, meetings, agreements. He tucked it away again. Evidence that will help separate allies from enemies. The mountainside offered a clear view of the countryside. In the distance, Seoul's skyline was visible, and above it, unnatural lights that could only be new gate formations. It's getting worse, Hae-In noted. More gates opening. The seals continue to weaken. Naruto's expression darkened. And now we know why. The coalition has been helping them, believing they were securing humanity's survival. What do the Atsutsuki really want? The divine fruit, they mentioned. Naruto was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant with memories. When I ascended, I absorbed power that the Atsutsuki believed was rightfully theirs. Power from the Ten Tails, a being they created to harvest worlds. And that made you the Shadow Monarch? Not immediately. The process took time. Evolution. The shadow abilities came later, as I learned to shape the divine chakra into forms that maintained balance. Hae-In studied him, seeing beyond the calm exterior to the burden beneath. You've been carrying this responsibility alone for centuries, haven't you? His eyes met hers. It was necessary. Direct intervention causes ripples that can be worse than the original problem. And now? Now the barriers are failing regardless. Intervention becomes the lesser risk. He looked back toward the city. But I can't do it alone. Not anymore. The vulnerability in his admission struck her. This being of immense power, a god in human form, acknowledging limitation. You won't have to, she said simply. Her communicator buzzed suddenly, emergency frequency. She answered cautiously. Hunter Cha. Jin Woo's voice came through, surprising her. Are you with the Shadow Monarch? How did you get this channel? She demanded. Association Emergency Protocols. Listen carefully, the coalition has declared both of you high-value targets. Hunter teams are being mobilized worldwide. Naruto didn't seem surprised. How quickly things escalate. Where are you? Hae-In asked Jin Woo. Association headquarters. Director Park is arguing against the coalition's orders, but he's being overruled. They're calling you traitors, claiming you attacked a research facility. The coalition is working with the Atsutsuki, she explained quickly. We have evidence. A pause. Then, I believe you. After what happened with the Frost Monarch. I've seen how they operate. Jin Woo's voice hardened. I want to help make this right. Naruto took the communicator. The corruption runs deep, Jin Woo. How can we trust you've completely broken free of their influence? You can't, came the honest reply. But I owe you for freeing me. And I still want to protect this world, even without the shadow power they promised. Naruto considered this. We need a secure meeting point. Somewhere the coalition doesn't monitor. The old hunter training grounds outside Busan, Jin Woo suggested. Abandoned after the third wave of gate appearances. I can be there in 2 hours. We'll find you. Naruto returned the communicator to Hae-In. Bring anyone you trust completely. No one else. The communication ended. Hae-In looked to Naruto. You believe him? I believe he's sincere. Whether he's still unknowingly influenced is another question. Naruto gazed toward Seoul. But we need allies, and beggars can't be choosers. Beggars? She raised an eyebrow. You're literally a god. A god with limitations. His expression softened slightly. Divinity isn't omnipotence, despite what legends claim. The admission seemed to cost him something, pride, perhaps, or the distance he'd maintained from humanity for centuries. What happens now? She asked. Now we gather what allies we can. Prepare for escalation. Naruto's eyes tracked something in the distant sky, distortions forming above Seoul that suggested new dimensional breaches. And I show you what it means to bear a god's burden. The abandoned training facility outside Busan had seen better days. Once the pride of the Korean Hunter Association, it now stood derelict, training fields overgrown, dormitories emptied, defensive systems offline. Hae-In and Naruto arrived as sunset painted the sky in crimson hues. Shadow walking had brought them instantly, but they'd taken a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. "We're early," she noted, scanning the empty compound. "Jin-Woo won't arrive for another hour at least. Time we can use." Naruto approached the central building, a circular structure that had once housed simulation systems for hunter training. "This place has significance to you." It wasn't a question. Hae-In nodded reluctantly. "I trained here when my abilities first manifested. Before my sensitivity to other hunters developed." "The last place you felt normal," Naruto surmised. "Something like that." Inside, equipment sat covered in dust, abandoned when newer facilities opened closer to major cities. Hae-In ran her fingers along a control panel, memories surfacing unbidden. "You said the Atsutsuki claimed I had some connection to you," she said, breaking the silence. "That my energy resonated with yours." Naruto studied her carefully. "Yes. Is that why your aura doesn't affect me like other hunters? Why I don't get sick around you?" "Partially." He moved to the center of the room, where a training circle was still visible despite years of neglect. "But there's more to it. Something I suspected when we first met, but couldn't confirm until the Atsutsuki mentioned it." "Which is?" Instead of answering directly, Naruto raised his hand. Shadows gathered, but instead of forming weapons or constructs, they coalesced into an image, a young woman with long dark hair and pale eyes, dressed in ancient battle gear. "Hinata Hyuga," he said softly. "My wife, centuries ago." Hae-In stared at the shadow image. "She looks like your ancestor, yes." Naruto dispersed the shadow. "When I ascended, most of my friends and allies remained behind. Lived normal lives. Had families. Hinata was among them." "You're saying I'm descended from your wife?" The idea seemed absurd, yet something resonated within her at the suggestion. "Not directly. But from her clan, the Hyuga. They possessed unique abilities, including immunity to certain energy types." Naruto's eyes studied her with ancient knowledge. "Over centuries, bloodlines thin. But certain traits remain, sensitivity to energy signatures, affinity for precise combat techniques." Hae-In's head spun with implications. "My family has been in Korea for generations. How could they possibly connect to your world? Dimensions aren't as separate as humans believe. Throughout history, people have crossed between worlds, usually unknowingly. Refugees from wars, explorers lost in strange phenomena, entire villages displaced by natural disasters that weren't entirely natural. And you think my ancestors were among them? These Hyuga? I know they were." Naruto's certainty was absolute. "Your fighting style, your sensitivity to magical auras, your ability to withstand my presence, all point to Hyuga lineage, diluted but present." Hae-In sat on a dusty bench, processing. Her family had always been different, traditional to a fault, practicing martial arts that other Korean families found strange, maintaining records that stretched back unusually far. That's why the Atsutsuki noticed, she realized. They recognized the bloodline. "And why we fight well together," Naruto added. "Your techniques complement shadow abilities in ways that evolved naturally over centuries of partnership." The revelation should have seemed far-fetched, yet it explained too much to dismiss: her isolation among hunters, her unique fighting abilities, the immediate connection she'd felt to Naruto despite his otherworldly nature. "So I'm what, the descendant of your world's defenders? Carrying some ancient legacy I never knew about?" "Everyone carries legacies they don't recognize," Naruto replied gently. "Yours just happens to cross dimensions." Before she could respond, a sound outside caught their attention: vehicles approaching. Multiple engines, moving quickly. "Jin-Woo's early," she noted, rising and checking her sword. Naruto's expression darkened. That's not Jinwoo. They moved to the windows. Military transport vehicles surrounded the facility, not Hunter Association equipment, but coalition tactical units. Dozens of armed personnel deployed, establishing a perimeter with practiced efficiency. They tracked us, Hae-In realized. But how? We were careful. Not Jinwoo, Naruto concluded. The communicator. Coalition technology with backdoor access. He betrayed us. Or never broke free of their influence to begin with. Naruto's shadows stirred restlessly. Either way, we're surrounded. A voice boomed over loudspeakers, Shadow Monarch and Hunter Cha. The facility is surrounded. Surrender peacefully for processing and evaluation. Hae-In's hand tightened on her sword hilt. Options? Several. None without complications. Naruto surveyed the deployment pattern. They've brought power suppression technology, the latest generation, based on what they learned from our visit. Will it work on you? Not completely. But it might be enough to limit my abilities at a crucial moment. His eyes narrowed as he spotted something among the coalition forces. Especially with what else they've brought. Following his gaze, Hae-In saw a figure in white moving among the tactical teams, another Atsutsuki, more powerful than the one at the facility based on the energy distortions visible around it. Fight or flight, she asked, already knowing his preference. Neither, yet. Naruto straightened, shadows receding completely. Let's hear what they have to say first. A new voice came over the loudspeakers, female, authoritative. Director Khan. We know you have the data crystal, Shadow Monarch. Return it, and we can discuss terms. Continue resistance, and we'll be forced to use methods that may damage this region substantially. Subtle, Hae-In muttered. Naruto approached the facility entrance, Hae-In at his side. They stood framed in the doorway, visible to the coalition forces but still within the building's relative protection. Your terms are irrelevant, Naruto called back, voice carrying without technological assistance. Your alliance with the Atsutsuki dooms this world whether you realize it or not. Kong herself stepped forward from behind a tactical vehicle. We've seen what happens to worlds that resist them. The coalition chose survival. You chose submission based on incomplete information. Naruto's voice hardened. They showed you what they wanted you to see, just as they did with Jinwoo. Speaking of whom, Kong smiled coldly, he sends his regards. From behind the coalition lines, Jinwoo emerged, but changed from their last encounter. His eyes glowed with unnatural purple light, and shadows once again clung to his form. The vessel returns to us, he said, but the voice wasn't entirely his. Something spoke through him, something ancient and cold. The Shadow Monarch will surrender what was stolen, or this world burns. Naruto sighed. The Frost Monarch. You found another way in. Jinwoo, or the entity controlling him, smiled. The human's connection to shadow power made him an ideal temporary vessel. Until we reclaim what is rightfully ours. Hae-In tensed, ready for combat. What's the plan? She whispered to Naruto. Improvisation, he replied quietly. Then, louder, you want what I possess. Come and take it. Power surged around him, shadow and divine energy intermingling in visible patterns. The coalition forces raised weapons, power suppressors activating throughout the perimeter. The possessed Jinwoo laughed. Gladly. He attacked with brutal speed, shadows extending into jagged spears that shot toward them. Naruto pushed Hae-In aside, his own shadows rising to intercept. The battle had begun. Shadow clashed against shadow as Naruto engaged the possessed Jinwoo. The Frost Monarch's influence was evident in the ice crystals that formed where their powers met, freezing the air itself. Around them, coalition forces maintained distance, suppression fields active but ineffective against the scale of power being demonstrated. Hae-In faced a different problem, the Atsutsuki had separated from the human forces, approaching her with predatory intent. Hyuga descendant, it said, voice musical but hollow. Your bloodline carries traces of what we seek. She raised her sword. Come any closer and find out what else it carries. The being moved with inhuman grace, faster than any monster she'd encountered in Gates. She flash-stepped aside, blade trailing energy as she counterattacked. To her surprise, the sword connected, slicing through the Atsutsuki's shoulder. The being hissed, white blood seeping from the wound. Interesting, it commented, examining the injury. Your weapon channels chakra naturally. A relic from the other world? Family heirloom, Hae-In replied, maintaining combat stance. Works well enough on arrogant invaders. The Atsutsuki's expression hardened. Arrogance implies incorrect assessment of superiority. I am superior, human. Allow me to demonstrate. It attacked again, not with physical strikes but with gravitational distortions that warped space around her. Hae-In found herself suddenly heavier, movement slowed as though fighting through water. Still, she adapted, her sword techniques shifting to shorter arcs, conserving energy while maximizing impact. The Hyuga heritage Naruto mentioned seemed to awaken in combat, instincts guiding her toward techniques she'd never formally learned. Nearby, Naruto and Jinwoo's battle escalated. The possessed hunter fought with desperate fury, shadows lashing out in increasingly chaotic patterns. Ice formed wherever his constructs touched, spreading across the training grounds. Your vessel weakens, Naruto observed, deflecting another attack. Human bodies weren't designed to channel Monarch power. This vessel is temporary, the Frost Monarch replied through Jinwoo's mouth. Once you surrender the divine fruit, we'll have no need for such limitations. You misunderstand what I became. Naruto's shadows formed complex seals, patterns reminiscent of his shinobi past. The divine fruit didn't just empower me. It transformed me. There's nothing left to extract that would survive the process. The possessed Jinwoo laughed. Lies to protect your power. We expected nothing less. Coalition forces began advancing, using the distraction of the battles to deploy specialized equipment. Hae-In noticed the movement despite her engagement with the Atsutsuki. They're surrounding us, she called to Naruto. Some kind of containment protocol. The Atsutsuki pressed its attack, sensing her divided attention. Your attachment to the Shadow Monarch is amusing. He abandoned his world, his wife, to pursue godhood. What loyalty do you think he deserves from her descendant? The taunt struck deeper than Hae-In expected. Had Naruto truly abandoned his wife, her ancestor, for power? The momentary doubt caused her focus, allowing the Atsutsuki to land a glancing blow that sent her skidding backward. Hae-In. Naruto called, concern evident despite his ongoing battle. I'm fine, she gritted, regaining her stance. Focus on Jinwoo. The possessed hunter seized Naruto's moment of distraction, shadows coalescing into a massive spear that drove toward his chest. Naruto deflected it partially, but the construct still pierced his shoulder, ice spreading from the wound. First blood, the Frost Monarch gloated through Jinwoo. How the mighty have fallen. Naruto's expression shifted, from controlled focus to something darker. His eyes blazed crimson, and the shadows around him deepened, gaining weight and substance. You want to see fallen? His voice resonated with power that made the air vibrate. Let me show you fallen. Golden energy erupted from his wound, vaporizing the ice instantly. The shadow around his body formed a partial manifestation, the nine-tailed fox taking shape around his human form like spiritual armor. Now, he commanded, and the fox construct roared, a sound that transcended physical limitations, rippling through dimensional barriers. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for their opponents. The suppression fields failed completely, equipment overloading in cascading failures. The Atsutsuki fighting Hae-In staggered, clutching its head as though in sudden pain. Most dramatically, Jinwoo convulsed, ice crystals erupting from his skin as the Frost Monarch's influence fought against some external force Naruto had summoned. "What did you do?" Hae-In asked, pressing her advantage against the disoriented Atsutsuki. "Called reinforcements," Naruto replied, approaching the struggling Jinwoo. "Shadow armies aren't my only allies." The air above the facility shimmered, reality bending as something massive pressed against dimensional barriers. Coalition forces retreated in disarray as equipment failed systematically. Jinwoo collapsed to his knees, the conflicting energies within him reaching critical levels. "Help, me." He managed, his own voice breaking through the monarch's control. Naruto knelt before him, placing a hand on his chest. "This will hurt, but it's necessary." Golden-edged shadows flowed from his palm into Jinwoo's body. The hunter screamed, a sound of pure agony as the Frost Monarch's influence was forcibly extracted. Ice crystals erupted across his skin, then shattered as Naruto completed the process. "Containment seal," Naruto muttered, forming complex gestures with his free hand. The extracted energy, blue-white and malevolent, coalesced into a small crystalline structure similar to the prison that had contained the Frost Monarch's physical form. Jinwoo collapsed, unconscious but freed from possession. Hae-In drove her sword through the Atsutsuki's chest, channeling her own energy through the blade. The being gasped, white blood flowering around the wound. "Impossible," it whispered. "A mere human." "A Hyuga descendant," she corrected, twisting the blade before withdrawing it. The Atsutsuki collapsed, body dissolving into particles of light. Coalition forces had fully retreated now, tactical vehicles abandoning equipment in their haste to escape whatever Naruto had summoned. Director Kong was nowhere to be seen, evacuated first, no doubt. Hae-In approached Naruto, who still knelt beside Jinwoo's unconscious form. "Is he alive? Purged of influence?" Naruto tucked the new crystalline prison containing the Frost Monarch's energy into his coat alongside the original. "He'll recover, though not quickly." The dimensional distortion above them continued to grow, reality thinning as something pressed from the other side. "What exactly did you call?" she asked, eyeing the distortion warily. "An old friend." Naruto stood, looking upward. "One who remained behind when I ascended. A guardian of the barriers between worlds." The distortion reached critical mass, tearing open to reveal, not a monster or deity, but a man. Tall, with dark hair and mismatched eyes, one black, one purple with concentric circles. He wore ancient armor that seemed to shift between solid and shadow. He landed lightly before them, surveying the aftermath of battle with a practiced eye. "Naruto," he greeted simply. "It's been some time." "Sasuke." Naruto clasped the newcomer's arm in a warrior's greeting. "Sorry for the abrupt summons. The barriers have been weakening. I was already investigating." Sasuke's strange eyes assessed Hae-In with unsettling perception. "A Hyuga descendant. Interesting. This is Hae-In," Naruto introduced. "Hunter. Ally." Sasuke nodded slightly in acknowledgement before turning back to Naruto. "The situation is worse than you realize. The Atsutsuki have breached multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. This world is just one target." "Coordinated attack," Naruto surmised. "They've been planning this for centuries." "Since your ascension, yes." Sasuke knelt beside Jinwoo, examining him with clinical detachment. "They've been seeking alternative sources of the divine fruit's power. Creating false shadow monarchs as vessels. Can you stabilize the barriers?" Naruto asked. "Temporarily. But the fundamental weaknesses remain." Sasuke stood. "Your seals were designed to last millennia, yet they're failing after centuries. Someone has been systematically undermining them." "The coalition?" Hae-In suggested. "No. They're pawns, manipulated like this one." Sasuke nodded toward Jinwoo. "This goes deeper. Someone with knowledge of the original sealing ritual." Naruto's expression darkened. That's not possible. Those who knew the details either ascended with me or died. Sasuke's mismatched eyes held ancient sadness. Death isn't as permanent as humans believe. Especially for those with certain abilities. The implications hung heavy in the air. Hae-In looked between them, sensing centuries of shared history and unspoken concerns. What happens now? She asked. We regroup, Naruto decided. Get Jinwoo to safety. Then address the root of the problem. Which is, she pressed. The gates, Sasuke answered. They aren't random dimensional breaches. They're deliberate weakening points, locations where the barriers between worlds are being systematically eroded. By whom? Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances loaded with meaning. By someone who should have remained in the pure world, Naruto said finally. Someone with a grudge against everything I've built. Hae-In's communicator buzzed urgently, emergency frequency, association override. She answered cautiously. Hunter Cha. Director Park's voice came through, tense and hurried. Where are you? Why? She asked, suspicious after the coalition's betrayal. Seoul is under attack. Not monsters, something else. They came through a gate in Gangnam Station. Humanoid, impossibly powerful. They're asking for the Shadow Monarch by name. Naruto tensed, hearing the message clearly with his enhanced senses. Describe them, he demanded, taking the communicator. White skin. Horns. Eyes with a ripple pattern. One calls himself Mamashiki. Naruto's expression transformed from concern to grim determination. Atsutsuki elders. They've finally shown themselves. How many casualties? Hae-In asked, already mentally mapping fastest routes back to Seoul. Dozens confirmed. Hundreds missing. They're not just killing, they're absorbing people somehow. Draining them. Harvesting chakra, Sasuke explained. Life energy. They're building power for something larger. Hold defensive positions, Naruto instructed through the communicator. Don't engage directly. We're on our way. He ended the communication, turning to Sasuke. Can you transport 3? 4, Sasuke corrected, gesturing to Jinwoo. We'll need him. He's unconscious, possibly still influenced, and connected to the shadow network you created. A potential asset. Sasuke's tone brooked no argument. Besides, leaving him for the coalition guarantees they'll try again. Naruto conceded with a nod. Hae-In. She checked her sword, determination hardening her features. I'm ready. This is what hunters train for. No, Naruto corrected gently. This is beyond what hunters were ever meant to face. These are gods we're confronting. Then it's fortunate I'm fighting alongside one, she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. Something passed between them, respect, understanding, perhaps something deeper neither was ready to name. Sasuke observed the exchange with knowing eyes before extending his hand. Space-time energy gathered around his palm, forming a portal unlike any gate or tear they'd witnessed before, precise, controlled, elegant in its construction. Soul awaits, he said simply. Together they stepped through, Sasuke carrying the unconscious Jinwoo. Behind them, the abandoned training facility stood empty once more, battle damaged the only evidence of what had transpired. And above, in skies increasingly distorted by dimensional weaknesses, something watched. Something ancient and patient, biding its time as pieces moved into final position. The true enemy, waiting for his former student to realize who orchestrated the barrier's fall. Soul burned. Not with conventional fire, but with chakra flames that consumed buildings without heat, draining their structural energy rather than burning materials. Streets cracked as life force was pulled from the very earth, creating withered zones where nothing lived. In the center of Gangnam district, 2 Atsutsuki elders hovered above a crater of their creation. Mamashiki, pale, elegant, with delicate horns, directed energy absorption with casual gestures. Beside him, Kinshiki, larger, more brutish, but no less dangerous, served as both enforcer and protector. Hunter teams maintained a desperate perimeter, evacuation efforts continuing behind their lines. S-rank hunters who had attempted direct engagement lay broken or drained, their powerful energy signatures making them priority targets for the invaders. Director Park coordinated from a mobile command center, face grim as casualty reports continued to mount. No response from coalition headquarters, an analyst reported. All channels silent. Cowards, Park muttered. They started this, then disappeared when it escalated beyond their control. The command center shook as another energy wave pulsed outward from the Atsutsuki position. Equipment flickered, power systems struggling against the unnatural drain. "Sir, new energy signature detected," called a sensor operator. "Massive displacement at perimeter point 7. Park moved to the monitoring station as space itself tore open, not chaotically like the gates, but with precise, controlled force. 4 figures emerged: Naruto, Hae-In, an unknown man with mismatched eyes, and the unconscious form of Jinwoo. "The Shadow Monarch returns," Park observed. "And brings friends. Sir, the unknowns are registering energy levels beyond our classification system." "Of course they are," Park sighed. "Patch me through to Hunter Cha." Hae-In surveyed the devastation with horror. Gangnam, once Seoul's vibrant heart, lay partially in ruins. The distinctive energy drain pattern left no doubt about the culprits. Atsutsuki harvesting, Sasuke confirmed, setting Jinwoo's unconscious form in a sheltered alcove. "They're creating a chakra pool for something significant." "The divine tree," Naruto said grimly. "They're preparing to plant it here." "What happens if they succeed?" Hae-In asked, though she suspected the answer. "Everything dies," Sasuke stated flatly. "The tree consumes all life energy within its range, which eventually encompasses the entire planet." Her communicator buzzed, Director Park requesting update and coordination. She answered briefly, confirming their arrival and position. "Association forces are maintaining evacuation corridors," she reported after ending the call. "But they've lost every S-rank who engaged directly. The Atsutsuki are feeding on them somehow. Chakra absorption, their specialty." Naruto's eyes narrowed as he studied the distant figures hovering above Gangnam Center. Momoshiki and Kinshiki. High-ranking clan members. "You know them?" Hae-In asked. "We've met," Sasuke answered cryptically. "In another life." Naruto turned to her, expression serious. "Stay with the evacuation teams. Help coordinate defense. Leave the Atsutsuki to us." "No." Her refusal came without hesitation. "I'm fighting alongside you." "Hae-In, these beings are beyond. I just killed one at the training facility," she interrupted. "My sword affects them. The Hyuga connection you mentioned, it matters. You need me in this fight." Sasuke studied her with renewed interest. "Your weapon channeled chakra against an Atsutsuki?" "Successfully." She nodded. "Cut through it like any other enemy." The dark-haired man exchanged meaningful glances with Naruto. "The bloodline is stronger than we thought. The sword must be a focus point." Naruto still hesitated. "If anything happened to you, that's not your decision to make," Hae-In said firmly. "This is my world, my city. I don't need protection, I need allies who respect my choice to fight." Something shifted in Naruto's expression, respect overcoming protective instinct. "All right," he conceded. "But stay close to either Sasuke or me. These elders are several orders of magnitude more dangerous than what you've faced so far." Their planning was interrupted as Jinwoo stirred, groaning as he regained consciousness. "Where?" He struggled to focus, then tensed upon seeing Naruto. "You. What happened?" "The Frost Monarch possessed you," Naruto explained simply. "I extracted its influence. Jin-Woo sat up slowly, wincing. I remember, fragments. The coalition facility. They showed me things, your past. Said you abandoned your responsibilities. Convenient half-truths, Sasuke commented. The monarchs excel at manipulation through selective revelation. Jin-Woo noticed him for the first time. Who are you? Someone who stayed behind, Sasuke replied cryptically. A guardian. Before further explanations could be offered, energy pulsed from the center of Gangnam, a massive spike that cracked pavement for blocks in all directions. They're accelerating the harvest, Naruto said, tension evident. We need to move now. Jin-Woo struggled to his feet. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. To the end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.